Hi there, Dr. Hatfield. Welcome to our online message. Last week we spoke about the devil, and it was hell to get through that sermon, but today we're going to speak about doubt. So please open up your Bible with me to the book of John, New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, fourth account of the life of Jesus, chapter 20, verse 24. And just to give some context, last week we said that religion is often filled with language like finding God or finding our way. And then on the other side of the coin, you have secular ethics and psychology that speaks about finding your purpose and finding your true self. And yet Christianity is so different, because instead of focusing on us finding our way and ourselves and our purpose and our worth, it tells us the good news of a God who comes to find us. In fact, Easter, as we're building up to it, is all about being found by God in Jesus. Found exactly where we are, exactly as we are. I love it. Luke 19, verse 10 says that the Son of Man, Jesus, came to seek and save the lost. And so, post-resurrection, Jesus, having died and he's resurrected, he appears to a whole bunch of groups and people, not as an apparition or a ghost or a spirit, but the resurrected body, the true Jesus, appears to them. But three specific encounters we want to look at as we build up to Easter. The first, last week, we saw that Mary Magdalene was found in the presence of demons. Today, Thomas is found in crippling doubt. And next week, Peter is found in failed conviction. And my question to us as we build up to Easter is, where do you find yourself? If you may be in this last season, for many years of your life, you have just felt that you have fallen and failed and faltered, and you desire more than anything else just to experience the forgiveness and the wholeness and the truth of God. Then I want to invite you, come with us on this journey over the next 3 weeks, not of us finding, but of being found by God in Jesus. So today, Thomas is found by Jesus in crippling doubt. Let's read together. John 20, verse 24. But Thomas, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples were telling him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "If I don't see the mark of the nails in his hands and put my finger into the marks of the nails and put my hand into his side, I will never believe." And so a week later, his disciples were indoors again, and Thomas was with them. And even though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them, and he said, "Peace be with you." And then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and look at my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Don't be faithless, but believe." And Thomas responded to him, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. So blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." Now, often in church history, we call him Doubting Thomas. But I hope that you see here today that not once does Jesus rebuke the disciple Thomas for his doubt. No, he does the opposite. He comes to find Thomas exactly where he is. And what does he do? He shepherds him. He guides him. He connects with him in his doubt. Because this is always who Thomas has been. Earlier in the ministry of Jesus, there's this famous moment in John 14 where Jesus says, "Believe in God, believe also in me." And he speaks to them about, the cross and what's going to happen. And he says, "You know where I am going and what I'm going to do." And Thomas is like, verse 5, "No, I don't know where we're going. And I don't know. How can we know this?" So you can imagine everyone, Jesus giving this rallying speech and cry, and everyone's like, "Yes, it's amazing." And Thomas is at the back like, "Am I the only one who doesn't know that this is the truth? Like, I'm wrestling with this." This is always who he has been. And friends, this is what doubt is. Doubt is when the story of your life is suddenly interrupted. It's when something happens, you encounter something, someone, some issue, and the things that you always believe that you believe about God, about faith, about life, is suddenly broken apart. In fact, the word doubt comes from this Aryan word that means two. So it literally feels like your life, your mind, your heart is torn in two between the things that I think and the things that I'm feeling, the things that I believe and the things that I'm experiencing. It's so difficult. But here's what I want us to see today. This is so crucial. And Thomas's words so beautifully illustrate that there is a massive difference in the Bible between the ideas of doubt and disbelief. These are not the same things. We see it so clearly here. Jesus engages him in his disbelief. Yes, doubt can take me to a place of disbelief, but doubt can as much take me to a deeper and more profound faith. Because doubt says, I'm not sure if this is true. I'm uncertain at this point if this is the reality. I feel shaken in this moment, whereas disbelief says, I don't care anymore if it's true. I don't care if this is the right thing. I don't care anymore if this could possibly be the way. And I want to say to us, friends, yes, doubt can lead to disbelief and sin and brokenness, but doubt can actually propel you into a new level of robust faith. Doubt does not have to be an obstacle. It can be an opportunity. So let's today look, there are so many things. Like last week, we can't unpack all of this, but I want us to look at just 3 issues regarding doubt, and that we wrestle with it and develop the kind of church and maturity that does this well. The first is, what's the reality of doubt? We'll get a bit later to the questions of why, the reasons, and then also our reaction to it. What's the reality of doubt? 2 sides of the same coin. The first is that doubt strikes everyone. Everyone is struck by doubt somewhere. We have to get it out of our minds. The stereotype that doubt is only for the people that are outside of the faith or outside of the church, or very comfortably say of themselves, I'm an atheist or agnostic. Those are the people that wrestle with doubt. That's not the truth. The last 2,000 years of church history, there has not been a single Christian who has not gone through significant seasons of doubt. That's just the truth. In fact, I love this. Diana Groover, she wrote this book, Companions in the Darkness, Saints Who Struggled with Depression and Doubt. And she recounts the life stories of people like Martin Luther and David Brainerd and Mother Teresa and Charles Spurgeon, and how all of these people, I don't know about you, how far you've gotten in your faith, but they've gotten further than I've gotten in faith. And yet she says of them that they wrestled repeatedly in deep seasons, weeks, days, months, years sometimes, of genuine doubt. And yet God used them so powerfully. Some of the very authors of the Bible that the Holy Spirit inspired to write through them, they struggled with depression and doubt. So we have to get this out of our minds. I mean, look at Matthew 28, verse 17. I love this. Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, he appears to some of his disciples, and it says, when they saw him, they worshipped. But what does it say? But some doubted. Friends, how is it that we can believe that Christians think they are disqualified in their faith if they doubt, when some of the apostles, looking into the eyes of the resurrected Jesus, still had doubts? Yes, it is true. Doubt can disrupt you in the journey of faith, but doubt never disqualifies you in the journey of faith. We have to be honest with the fact that, yes, doubt strikes everyone. It can happen to anyone. And if you're willing to not just give yourself some Sunday school answers today, we can actually say it does happen in certain seasons and moments to every person. So that's the one side of the coin. It strikes everyone. But the second side is so hopeful, because it says that in doubt, there is such a potential of power and possibility in doubt. One author said that doubt is like the ants in the pants of faith. It keeps us moving, right? So doubt has such a possibility. Look at what happens. Jesus engages Thomas. And what happens? When the penny drops for Thomas, he says this, verse 28, my Lord and My God. And you can go and look at any commentary on the book of John, and they will agree that this is one of the most direct and bold and potent statements on the deity of Jesus. So far from being one of the greatest doubters in the Christian church, over history you've seen that these statements, these words of Thomas are some of the most powerful words of exclamation of who Jesus is in all four of the Gospels. So there is such a potential on the other side of doubt. When we work through it and wrestle and honestly engage, it can actually propel us into new levels of faith. And it's because the Bible actually has such a balanced view of doubt. You know, it says that yes, it's true, doubt can lead you to disbelief, to sin, to brokenness. But it can also lead you to a more robust and strong faith. And we don't like that. We want simple answers. We just want, some kind of mathematical formula of faith that just always works, but that's not reality. So, we often, when we hit these seasons, days, weeks, months, years of doubt, we do one of three things. We either say, oh, I'm such a bad Christian. I'm such a disappointment. God hates me probably. This shouldn't be happening. Or I say, well, don't think about it. Just close your eyes, stick your head in the sand, switch off your brain, and just believe. Just keep on going. Or we say, well, I guess this is it now. I just can't believe anymore. I'm so paralyzed by doubt. There's no hope anymore. And the Bible just rejects all three of those things and says, no, there is a tension. There's a balance in doubt that we need to take note of. Because look at what Jesus does. He engages Thomas right where he is, but how does he do that? He engages him on the place of disbelief. He says, don't be faithless, but believe. But how do you do that? By running away from your doubts? By avoiding them, sidestepping them? No, he says, let's go right to the issue. Put your finger here. Look at my hands. Let me engage your doubts so that you can move in the season of doubt, not to disbelief, but to faith, to belief. This is what he does. We need to develop as a church and as Christians, we need to develop this tension. That yes, doubt can lead you astray into brokenness, to sin, to hopelessness, but it can actually, instead of being an obstacle, it can be the opportunity that God uses to strengthen you, to make you more robust and hopeful in your faith. I think what doubt can actually do, these seasons, as we work through them, is take head knowledge and make it life conviction. I have had my faith tasted by real life. And if we don't do that, friends, that's one of many reasons why I would say we can never have a church culture where we are discouraging people from asking difficult questions and asking them repeatedly and really wrestling with them. Where we just sidestep issues, we switch off our brains, we just say, la, 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 I'm not going to think about this. That is not good. Why? Because you are setting yourself up with a brittle and untested faith. And the first time that you come to university because you grew up in a church where questions were not allowed, you are going to get rocked in your faith. The first time that life really hits you in the face, you're going to get rocked in the face. So we need to have a strong faith that is tested by the realities of the challenges of doubt. Because if I just go through life and I'm too busy or I'm too uninterested to really wrestle and stretch my faith, that kind of faith will never be able to survive in the real world. It can survive on a Sunday when the music is nice and it's comfortable, but not in the real world. So let me give us an example that I think can serve as a metaphor that's so helpful for how we think about these journeys of doubt. Jonathan Haidt has this great example. He says that in the early 1990s, in America, the idea of peanut allergies were not really a thing. 4 out of every 1,000 kids under the age of 8 would develop this allergy. And later, in the mid-2000s, they would test this again with the same methodology, and they had found these numbers quadrupling. So parents were reacting. We need to protect our kids against the peanuts. Don't eat peanuts. Don't even look at peanuts. Don't even read the comic book Peanuts or say the word peanut. Protect the kids. But here's the crazy thing that happened. Later, it was found scientifically that the reason why peanut allergies were skyrocketing amongst the kids of the US at that time, it was because of protection coming from the parents toward the kids. Because they had kept them from exposure to these things, they became more susceptible. So in 2015, they had this comprehensive study where they had tested 640 or studied these high-risk infants. And half of the group, they had split them up and they'd said to these parents, follow the typical advice for kids at high risk for this allergy by protecting them, keeping them from it. Don't expose them to it. Don't even say the word. And the other half, they had said, let's, in a controlled way, expose these infants at least 3 times a week to some peanut-related product. And the thing that happened was astounding, the results, because of these kids who were protected, shielded from it, almost 25% of them after 5 years had developed peanut allergies. Whereas these kids who had been intentionally exposed, virtually none of them developed peanut allergies. Friends, what are we saying? Your immune system is not a static thing. It's a dynamic thing that needs to be challenged at certain points in times in order for it to become robust and strong and resilient. And so is faith. Your faith is not a static thing. It's a dynamic thing that needs to be tested and stretched for it to become robust, strong, and resilient. Just recently, one of the partners in our church, this person comes to me and they organize this coffee that we finally can see each other. And this person is so distraught because they say they are afraid that I'm going to be angry at them and disappointed in them. Why? Because they have, over the last couple of months, gone through a season where things in the Bible and ethics and issues with the LGBTQ crowd and how that intersects with faith and just a whole bunch of things have so confused them, stressed them out, made them doubt, that they honestly said, they sat in a community group recently and they were saying things as they were hosting that they don't think they believe at the moment. They are deep in the place of doubt. And this person was like, okay, Joe's going to hit me with this plucky over the head and he's angry and he's frustrated. I said to them, I get it. That's where I am often too. So many times in my life, I've been there. Friends, I resonate with Thomas. I'm a lifelong skeptic. I remember once, it's happened a couple of times in my life where I've really just gotten so stuck into some issue of theology or philosophy of life, or I've been rocked by something happening to me. I remember once driving with my wife close to the beach in December, and she just looked at me and she asked, listen, are you still there? Are you still a Christian? And I just said, listen, just give me a month or two. I just need to work through this. So I told this person, listen, I am with you, and here is a hand of shepherding, of friendship, of pastoring. Let's wrestle together. I love what Austin Fisher says. He says in his book, Faith in the Shadows, speaking on doubt, people don't abandon faith because they have doubts. People abandon faith because they think they're not allowed to have doubts. People abandon faith because intentionally or unintentionally, they've been forced into an impossible, unbiblical, and binary choice. You can have Jesus or you can have doubts, but you cannot have both. That's not biblical. True Christianity wrestles with these things, and it sees the fact that the potential of doubt is that on the other side of every season of doubt, there is the potential for a propelled and new level of robust and strong faith. We have to realize that deep faith is not about perfection, it's about progress. This is how we want to get at it. Now, the reason for doubt, why does this happen? We have to understand that our faith, and we all experience this, happens often. You're in a season where you say, man, my faith is emphatic, it's alive, it's soaked, I'm just wide-eyed wonder, and I'm worshiping, and I'm crying every Sunday, and it's so beautiful. I have this joyful, just simplicity and absolute trust in Jesus. And then life happens. You experience some kind of tragedy, a loss close to you, a friend or a parent or a child, and your broken heart just screams out, "Why, God?" But there's no answer. Or maybe you used to love the Bible and read it, and then you came upon something, or someone said, or you read some article, or someone poked a hole in your thinking about the Bible, and now everywhere you read, you are just confused and angry and frustrated. And so you just put it down. Or maybe you were hurt by the church. A leader like me or someone in the church disappointed you. You saw hypocrisy in the church. Someone that used to be as close as a brother or a sister just stabbed you in the back. Or maybe some famous atheist, you heard them unhelpfully saying, you have to choose between faith and science. And you're saying, but I want to believe this, but now none of this makes sense anymore. Maybe you've just grown disillusioned. Because after years of praying into an issue, you just say, man, there is silence from God on it. And here's the scariest one. This is scarier than the devil from last week. It's when just the dreariness of life just chokes out your faith. That religious and vibrant passion that you once had, it's now just been absolutely overrun by conference calls and diapers and exams and mowing the lawn and Instagram notifications and drama at the office and sitting in traffic. And suddenly your faith just feels so tame and boring. Guys, anything can take us into this dark place of doubt. It can be the horror of suffering and evil. It can be encountering just a different religion or worldview, and it rocks you. Or it can be the fact that I'm caught up in sin and I'm trying to rationalize it. Or just some very potent argument by a very smart person. I've never thought about this before, and it hits me. Now, friends of ours, just 2 weeks ago, they had an armed robbery happen at their business. Two guys come in. One had an AK-47, and he actually pressed us up against the head of a child. Just rocked them. Just recently, I had this conversation with one of the students in our environment, and this person just saying, listen, I'm looking at the Bible, and I'm looking at the reality of the queer friends that I have in my circle, and this whole thing of sexuality and ethics and the Bible and faith. I don't know. I'm not sure if I really believe this anymore. I had a chat with someone just recently where this person said their spouse was so committed to Christianity that at their wedding, the spouse shared a testimony of God bringing them to faith, of knowing that His voice had led them to marry this person. And now, years later, it started with hypocrisy in the church. People saying one thing but doing something else. This spouse is now a committed atheist. All these things, it's not as if we didn't know that they exist, but suddenly something happens and it's so in your face, it's right up in your gills, and now you can't look away. It's hit you right in the life. And now what happens? Friends, I've been there so often. And then sometimes people will quote to me and just say, here is the magic recipe. Hebrews 11, verse 1, just have faith. That sorts all of it out. Just have faith. Let's read it together. It's so powerful. This statement of faith. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the reality of what is hoped for. It is the proof of what is not seen. What? You know what? You read that verse in isolation in a season of doubt and you're like, what does that even mean? That's why so often, that is just vague enough for you to bend into whatever you want it to mean. And that's why, guys, good biblical reading principle, never read a verse. Read a chapter, read a book, read something in the full scope of the narrative of the Bible, because this verse is unpacked for us in the whole chapter of chapter 11, where it says that kind of faith that it speaks of, it's shown to us in story after story after story of people in the biblical narrative who, even though they were filled with brokenness and doubt and uncertainty, they trusted God and they acted. Doubt and faith are not the opposites of one another. You can be in a place of uncertainty and doubt and still say that faith has more to do with the word trusting in God and acting even when I'm filled with doubt. Faith is not the absence of doubt. Faith is the willingness to trust God and say, yes, as we always say, I can absolutely trust the heart of God in my life, even when I cannot fully trace the hand of God in my life. There are so many reasons, and we need to journey through them. But then finally, what's our reaction then to doubt? How can we, in a mature way, journey through doubt so that we come out the other side maybe even more strong and robust? And I just want to give us a couple of thoughts. Again, there are so many things you can read and listen to and watch and get stuck into. I really want to say, guys, we have to become students of our faith. You cannot have just a religion of good emotions and good ideas from the past. We have to get stuck into the reality, the philosophy, the theology, the community of faith so that it becomes something strong and impactful. But just 3 thoughts. Is in seasons of doubt, number 1, seize the moment to truly grow and deepen your faith. Seize the moment. Do you know that your muscles actually weaken when you don't exercise them? They've done studies on astronauts who come back even from just 5 to 11 days of being in space, and they've lost, some of them, up to 20% of their muscle mass and bone density. If we are not challenged, we don't grow. But the 2 things we want to avoid is never exercising and then suddenly just being hit by a heavy weight. You come through youth group as a child and, as a teenager in the church, and it's never a robust faith. It's just Sunday school answers. We just ignore the issues. We don't speak about it. And you get to university and a heavy weight just crushes you. I don't become a student of my faith. My faith is just Christmas and a little life verse here and there. And then someone close to me dies in a horrific way and I'm crushed by the heavy weight. I need to be exercised, stretched in my faith for it to grow. I love what Dominic Don says in his book, When Faith Fails, Finding God in the Shadows of Doubt. He says, your doubts are not a sign of spiritual collapse, but of a faith that is screaming out for substance and truth. So this is the truth, that our doubts can be the doorway to intimacy. Our doubts don't have to be obstacles. They can be the way that we actually go straight into robust faith. We have to say, God, in this season, please don't take me around this issue, but take me into it with your Spirit's power and your community around me. But I want to say one thing. I think that really helps us is I take the example of John Lennox. Now, he's the emeritus professor of mathematics at Oxford and also has a second PhD. He's one of those kinds of people in philosophy from Oxford as well. He's a guy that speaks 5 languages, so he's not an uneducated and simple man. And yet, as a mathematician, he speaks with such eloquence of his Christian faith as well. But he would often say that, we have to be so careful in faith, especially when we are seeking and we're trying to wrestle through things, that we don't look for proof. Because he said, listen, it's only in my field of mathematics where you have absolute proof of something. In the rest of the world, even in most of the sciences, the things that truly matter to us in life, that makes it beautiful, love and the law and arts and beauty and relationships and religion and ethics and philosophy, that is not the realm of proof. It's the realm of evidences. We go after what is the most compelling evidence for and evidence against, and then we step into it. Friends, you're not going to have proof if you seek for it. Because think about it. Can you prove to me that the couple that have been married for 50 years love each other? Can you prove to me that this poem is beautiful? Can you prove to me that rape is evil? Can you prove to me that you are not a butterfly dreaming right now of being a person watching this sermon? You cannot prove that. No, we work with the evidences for faith and against it. And I think the primary evidence we start with is the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Because in Jesus, we understand and see God, and the rest flows from it. But secondly, think about the fact that in seasons of doubt, please look holistically at your life. Matthew 22:37 says, love the Lord your God with what? Your heart, soul, and mind. You have to realize that you are not simply a brain on a stick. You are a holistic person. That's how God has made you. Our emotions play a role. Our lifestyle plays a role. Our decisions have a role to play. And yes, the theology and the philosophy and the evil of life, all those things work together. So yes, sometimes doubt starts as an intellectual issue or a theological or a philosophical or experiential. Something happens in my life, but there are always more things going on. You say, no, I just rocked up to university and I read those skeptical books and I became an atheist. Yes, that was part of it, but you also met that really well-spoken atheist who laughed at some of your beliefs and you felt so insecure. You also started sleeping with your boyfriend and you got caught up in the hookup culture of Pretoria and suddenly all these things rolled into one and you realized this is not who I am anymore. There is always more going on. So if you cannot simply think your way exclusively into doubt, you're not going to think your way out of it. It's the fullness of it. In those seasons, you need to keep on praying and singing and studying and speaking and serving and waiting and crying. You're a whole person. All these things will play a role. So be wise. Ask yourself questions in those seasons of doubt. Like, who am I hanging out with? Is it only one kind of a crowd taking me in one direction, or do I have balance in that? Do I only unwisely step into one side of an issue as I investigate it, or do I look at the other side as well with wisdom? Have I abandoned just passionate worship of Jesus in this season? Because it makes a difference. And am I scrumming away from community or into it? Because again, that isolation will make a difference. Look at seasons of doubt as you go straight into it in a holistic fashion and be wise. Lastly, I want to say, guys, in seasons of doubt, remember that Christianity is found on the strength of Christ, not the strength of your faith in Christ. That is the strength of Christianity. Probably one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 15. The Apostle Paul says, if Christ has not been raised, then our proclamation is in vain, and so is your faith. Verse 17, if Christ has not been raised, your faith is worthless and you are still in your sins. And if then we have put our faith in Christ for this life only, we should be pitied more than anyone. Paul says there are such challenging issues in life and faith. People die, there's war and horror and rape and destruction. There are issues of philosophy and theology and ethics, the Bible, there's science, there's faith, all these things. But he says none of those things are the primary issue in Christianity. The primary issue is this: was Jesus who he said he was? Because Christianity rises and falls not on creationism or science issues or evil and suffering or predestination or whatever it is. It doesn't rise and fall on my understanding as to why something happened in my life or to me. It rises and falls on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. It's his faithfulness. And I believe that I can trust in who he was and is. In fact, we often sing that song Cornerstone, but it's actually an old hymn called Solid Rock, and it says this: when darkness seems to hide his face, the darkness of doubt and brokenness, I rest on his unchanging grace. I don't rest in my ability to understand or to wrestle through or to make sense of. I rest in the unchanging grace of Jesus. And how do I know that there is grace? Because when he hung on a tree 2,000 years ago, and he took upon himself death and brokenness and sin and guilt and disease and doubt and my hopelessness and all the filth, when he took all of it upon himself, the Father turned his face away from Jesus so that those who believe in him, he would never turn his face away from them. He comes to find us, John says, full of grace and truth. Maybe you're skeptical. Maybe you're a hard drinker and you've lost your way. Maybe you are so bored with religion. Maybe someone dear to you that passed away has so rocked your idea of a good God. But do you hear today that it's not about you coming to find him, but about him coming to find us in grace? He finds us just where we are, but finding us in truth. He's not going to leave us just where we are. Maybe you are in crippling doubt. Hear today that he comes to find